All right, so let's jump right into all this stuff about PayPal. Um, you gave me a ton of info to go through, research reports, earnings, call transcripts. Everything seems like you really want to understand where they're at and where they're headed.
Yeah, looks like a Homer. Guess we should start with like a quick look at what they even do. They do, I think, something like $1.7 trillion in payments every year
Yeah.
and 434 million active accounts all over the world. That's a lot of buying and selling.
That is wild.
Yeah.
It's easy to forget how much of online shopping goes through them, but like what makes them so special? Why are they the ones everyone uses? I mean, there are tons of ways to pay online, right?
Oh, for sure there are. But one of their biggest strengths is that they're kind of like this two-sided platform, right? They've got all these people and all these businesses plugged in, and that makes it really valuable for everyone.
Okay, I get it. Like the more people use it, the more businesses want to use it, and the more businesses use it, the more people use it. This like snowball thing.
Exactly. It's a huge advantage.
So let's break down all the different ways they do business, though, right? Because the report broke it down into like consumer-focused merchant or enterprise-focused, and then cross-platform stuff.
Right. And that shows you how they're trying to make money in this world of payments, right? So on the consumer side, there's that good old PayPal checkout button.
Oh yeah,
You see it everywhere for a reason. I mean, their checkout button has something like a 90% conversion rate, which means like 9 out of 10 people who click it actually buy the thing.
9 out of 10. That's crazy.
Yeah.
The industry average is like half that, right? Like 50%.
Yeah, it's huge. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, everyone knows PayPal. So there's that, like, you trust it with your money and it's just easy to use. You don't want to be messing around with a complicated checkout when you're buying online.
Totally. No one has time for that. So they've got the name recognition, the trust, and a smooth experience. That's a winning combo.
All right. So then there's Venmo, right? It seems like everyone I know uses it to, like, split bills and send money to friends.
Yeah.
But how does PayPal make money off of
That's a good question because Venmo is super popular for like the social payments, but it hasn't really brought in a ton of money for them yet. But they're working on it. They're starting to add things like the Venmo debit card and the pay with Venmo option for online
it?
stores.
So they're hoping people start using it for everyday spending, not just for sending like 20 bucks to a friend for pizza or whatever.
Exactly. But whether they can get those casual users to actually pay for those extra features, that's the big question.
Okay, so that's the consumer side. What about the businesses using PayPal? What are these things? The research mentioned Braintree, PayPal, Complete Payments, and value-added services. What even are those?
So think of Braintree as like the engine behind tons of websites. It's their payment processing system, but it's
Hmm.
all behind the scenes. No one sees it. It's super popular with bigger companies because it can handle tons of transactions really smoothly.
So Braintree is like the behind-the-scenes workhorse, while the PayPal button is the like star of the show.
That's a great way to put it. Then you've got PayPal Complete Payments, which is all about helping businesses manage payments everywhere on stores, physical stores, everything, that whole like omni-channel thing you hear about. It's like a one-stop shop for businesses to make their payments easy.
Gotcha. And these value-added services, are those like extras?
Exactly. They're the things that make PayPal even more attractive to businesses, like fraud protection tools for dealing with chargebacks, those disputes customers file, and even stuff like currency exchange for international
Well,
businesses.
it's not just processing payments, it's like giving them a whole toolbox to run their business better.
Exactly. And importantly, those services bring in more profit for PayPal.
Okay, so it sounds like they have a lot going on, but they're not the only ones in this game,
Right.
right? The research mentions a whole bunch of competitors, some I've heard of and some I haven't. What's the competition like for them?
Oh, it's getting intense out there. There are some big players like Block Inc.
Yeah.
Used to be Square. They've got a good chunk of those small and medium businesses with their point of sale systems and that Cash App everyone's using.
Hmm. Yeah, Cash App seems to be everywhere these days. Are they like a real threat to PayPal?
They've definitely done well with those smaller businesses, and Cash App is growing fast, but they're not as broad as PayPal. They don't have that worldwide reach or all those different services, and they really depend on those smaller businesses, which makes them vulnerable if the economy takes a hit. Plus, they're getting into crypto, which who knows what'll happen with that.
So more focused, but maybe riskier too. What about Adyen? The research said they're big in the enterprise world.
Adyen is a beast when it comes to those complex payment systems for huge companies. They've got a really strong setup globally, and they're all about automation, which keeps their costs down.
Hmm. How do they compare to PayPal? Like, what are their strengths and weaknesses?
Well, they're amazing in those fast-growing enterprise areas, but they don't have that direct connection to everyday people like PayPal does. PayPal has millions of people already using their system for shopping online. That's a big advantage.
Right, that two-sided thing again. What about Stripe? I feel like I keep hearing about them in the tech world.
Yeah, Stripe is super popular with developers and online businesses. They built their system to be really easy for developers to use, with APIs so you can plug their payments right into your website or app. They're all about helping businesses grow online.
So they're like the cool new kid on the block.
You could say that, and they're going hard with their growth. They're getting into lending for small businesses and making partnerships with other fintech companies to build a whole suite of tools.
Lots of potential, but they're still pretty new to all this. Okay, so then there are the giants, right? Apple Pay and Google Pay, those have to be a worry for PayPal.
They're definitely forces to be reckoned with. I mean, they're built right into those huge mobile ecosystems, iOS and Android, that gives them a level of convenience and reach that's hard to beat.
So do you think they could take over PayPal's main business?
They're definitely putting pressure on them, especially when it comes to mobile payments. But don't forget, PayPal does a lot more than just that. It works on all sorts of platforms and devices, not just iPhones or Android phones. And they're really pushing into that omni-channel commerce thing, connecting online and offline payments.
So it's like ecosystems versus being everywhere. Okay, so we talked about the competition.
Yeah.
What about PayPal's advantages? What makes them stand out in this crowded space?
Well, their brand is huge.
Yeah.
People know and trust PayPal. That's a big deal. They've also built some of the best fraud prevention systems out there, which is really important for businesses.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially with all the online scams happening these days. What else is working for them?
Don't forget Venmo. If they can figure out how to make money off all those users, that could be huge. And they're smart to be pushing into omni-channel commerce because that's where things are headed, with online and offline shopping merging together.
It sounds like they're in a good spot, but every company has its problems, right? What are some of the things PayPal is struggling with?
One of the biggest things is they lost some important partnerships. Like, they used to be the only way to pay on eBay, not anymore. And now it's a real fight to get businesses to use their system.
Oh, yeah. eBay was like their home base.
Oh,
That must have hurt. What else are they dealing with?
getting new people to sign up and use their system, that's been tough lately. They've kind of hit a plateau and they need to get that growth going again if they want to stay on top.
Yeah, it must be hard to stand out when everyone's trying to get people to use their payment app or whatever.
For sure. And then there's all the regulations, especially internationally. Every country has its own rules and preferences. It's a lot to keep up with.
So plenty of challenges for them.
Yeah.
All right, so now that we have a good sense of who they're up against, let's talk about how they're actually going to grow their business. Where do we even start with that?
Well, let's look at their main strategies. They're really focused on getting more people using their checkout button online, adding new features like that Fastlane guest checkout, and making sure people are actually clicking and buying things.
So doubling down on what they're already good at.
Exactly. And they're really serious about making Venmo profitable, getting people to use those debit cards and pay with Venmo. They want those features to become part of people's everyday routines.
Makes sense, but they can't just focus on consumers, right? What about businesses and those bigger companies?
That's where Braintree shines. They're going after those bigger companies that need more complex payment processing and offering all those extra services we talked about, like fraud management and currency conversion.
So a more targeted approach going for those high-value clients.
Exactly. And they've actually made a big decision to focus on making more profit instead of just growing as fast as possible. They're willing to slow down a bit if it means being more profitable in the long run.
That's interesting, kind of like playing the long game.
Exactly. But the big question is, can they pull it off? Can they actually execute these strategies? That's the real test.
And that brings us to those execution risks, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that could trip them up?
Yeah, a lot of things could go wrong. One of the big ones is getting those active accounts growing again. They need to not just get new users, but keep them coming back and actually using PayPal.
Yeah, especially with so many choices out there, right? Like all these new payment apps. It's tough to stand out.
For sure. And then there's Venmo. Can they really get those people who just use it for fun to start paying for those extra features like the debit card and paying at stores? That's a big if.
I mean, it seems like a hard sell, right? People are so used to Venmo being free and just for sending money to friends, changing that habit could be really tough.
It could be, and that move to focus on those big profitable clients through Braintree, that's risky too. It might help their profits in the long run, but it could also push away smaller businesses and maybe even slow down their growth in the short term.
So it's a delicate balance, trying to get those big fish while keeping the little guys happy. What about actually launching all these new products and features? Are there risks there too?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, to get everyone using something like Fastlane, that guest checkout, it has to work perfectly with all the different systems businesses use. Any problems there could hurt their reputation and slow things down.
So they got to get it right. They can have the best plans in the world, but if they mess up the launch,
Yeah.
it won't matter.
Exactly. And don't forget, going international, that's a whole other challenge. Every new country means new rules, new customers, and new competition.
Right. What works in one place might not work somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
They got to be flexible. So looking at how they've been doing lately, are there any signs that they're handling these risks well?
There's some good news. Their last earnings call showed they started growing again in 2024. They hit 434 million active accounts, and they saw some good growth in their checkout volume, especially in the US, thanks to those new checkout features and people spending more in some key areas.
So some positive signs there. What about Venmo? Are they making progress on making money from it?
They said they've seen a big jump in people using the debit card and pay with Venmo every month. It's early days, but it's a good sign that their plan might actually be working.
That's good to hear. But didn't they say there were some issues with Braintree?
Yeah, they said that focusing on those big, profitable clients through Braintree is actually hurting their revenue growth right now because they're renegotiating some big contracts. But they say it's just a short-term problem and that these changes will mean better profits later on.
Sounds like they're making some tough calls to set themselves up for success down the road. So taking everything into account, what are the big things we should be keeping an eye on? What will really determine PayPal's future?
Well, the competition is always changing, so watch how companies like Block80 and Stripe react to what PayPal's doing, and keep an eye on those tech giants, Apple Pay and Google Pay. Are they going to start taking over PayPal's territory? That's a big one.
Yeah, the competition is fierce. What about Venmo?
That's another big one. Will people actually use those paid features, or will they stick to just using it for free with friends? How many people adopt those features will tell us a lot. And then there's the bigger question of how well those new checkout features are doing. Are they actually getting more people to buy things and attracting new businesses?
And of course, we can't forget about the whole economy, right? How will things like inflation, interest rates, and people's spending habits affect their business? There's a lot going on.
There is, but that's what makes following a company like PayPal so interesting. It's always changing. And understanding how it all works can give you a real advantage in this world of digital payments.
That's for sure. Well, I think we've covered a lot today, from how their business works and all the different things they do to who they're up against and the choices they're making to grow. It's been a real deep dive into PayPal.
It has. And remember, this is just a snapshot. Things are always changing in this industry, so you got to keep learning and analyzing. But with what we've talked about today, you're in a good spot to follow along and see where PayPal and the whole industry are headed.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating space to watch. Until next time, happy diving.
This content is produced by Compasscope.com. For more than 1,100 public listed companies, find detailed research reports, visual mind maps, earnings call analysis, and audio discussions on Compasscope.com.